My sister stole money from my room for herself. She expected me to cry, but I smiled. Then Dad stormed in. "Where's the $15,000 for your sister's college?" She burst into tears. When I opened the drawer of my desk and saw the empty space where my $200 had been yesterday, my heart stopped for a moment. I was the only one with the key. Only me and Cassie. I stood in my room, staring at the open drawer, and felt something cold spread through my stomach. That money was a month's worth of saving on lunches, giving up coffee anywhere other than the coffee shop where I work. A month of dreaming about the old but reliable Honda I saw at the used car lot 3 weeks ago. The owner was asking $1,200 for it, and I was already on my way to achieving my goal. My name is Maya Holbrook. I'm 22 years old, and I'm a barista at Beans and Brews, a small coffee shop in the center of our town, Greenville. It's not the most prestigious job, but it gives me enough to help my parents with the bills and save up little by little for my own dreams. The main one of which is a car. I'm tired of taking the bus to work, especially when I have to work late and the last bus leaves at 9 in the evening. Sometimes I have to wait for my dad to give me a ride, but he's already tired after working 2 jobs. I found a job as a barista right after I dropped out of college. The owner of the coffee shop, Mr. Rodriguez, hired me without any experience, just after seeing how I could work with people. "You have the right attitude, girl," he said at the time. "Now I can make any coffee drink with my eyes closed and know my regular customers by name. Mrs. Patterson always has a large latte with extra foam. Mr. Johnson has a double espresso without sugar, and the students from the local college want the cheapest Americano because they never have any money." I looked in the drawer again, hoping the money was there, under the papers, under the old photos, under the notebook where I write down my expenses. But no, it was empty. And only one person besides me knew where I hid the spare key to that drawer. A month ago, I showed Cassie where I hid the key when I asked her to look at my work schedule, which was in that very drawer. If I'm not here and you need to know when I'm working, the key is under the lamp, I said at the time. Now I regret that decision. "Cassie?" I called my sister. A few minutes later, she walked into my room looking so innocent that I almost had second thoughts. Almost. She was wearing a new t-shirt that I had never seen before, bright pink with the logo of some expensive brand. "What's up?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Have you seen any money here?" "In the drawer?" "What money?" She tilted her head, feigning surprise so convincingly that I envied her acting skills. My younger sister had always been an actress. As a child, she could convince our parents of anything with her big brown eyes and innocent smile. I remember how in 5th grade she broke my mother's favorite vase while playing ball in the house, and then so skillfully blamed it on the cat that my parents believed her. Now she is 19, and these skills have only improved. "Cassie, there was $200 in there. It couldn't have just disappeared. I remember clearly putting it there last night after work." "Maya, I didn't take your money." "Why would I?" She spread her arms and a new bracelet flashed on her wrist, one I definitely hadn't seen before. A thin gold chain with small pendants. I didn't mention the bracelet. I didn't mention the new t-shirt either. I didn't make a scene. Because in 2 weeks, Cassie is going to college. The prestigious Wilton College she's been dreaming of since 10th grade. Her parents are so proud of her that they are ready to tell every passerby about her achievements. Our Cassie is going to Wilton. Can you imagine? She got a scholarship. Her average grade is 4.9 out of 5. The scholarship covered only half of the tuition. Her parents had been saving up for the other half, $15,000 a year, for the past 3 years, each working 2 jobs. Her father, Daniel, works at a building materials warehouse in the morning, lifting heavy bags of cement and boards, and in the evening he works as a security guard at a shopping mall. He comes home at 1 in the morning and collapses on the sofa without even taking off his clothes. Mom Linda cleans the offices of a large law firm until lunchtime, washing toilets and vacuuming carpets. And after lunch, she works as a cashier at the Megamart supermarket, where she has to stand on her feet all the time. I see how tired they are, how Mom's feet hurt and she rubs some cheap cream into them in the evening, how Dad's back hurts and he can't straighten up properly. All this is for Cassie, for her bright future, so that she can become the first in the family with a higher education from a prestigious educational institution. And me? I graduated from school with average grades, C's and D's, nothing outstanding. I enrolled in a local college to study management, and I even enjoyed the first semester. But after the first year, it became clear that it was difficult for my parents to support 2 children. Utility bills were rising, food prices were rising, and salaries remained the same. Someone had to go to work and help the family. The choice was obvious. "Okay," I said to Cassie, gritting my teeth. "If you remember anything about my money, let me know." She was already turning to leave when I added, "Nice bracelet, by the way. And the t-shirt's not bad either." Cassie stopped without turning around. I could see her shoulders tense. "A gift from a friend," she said over her shoulder and quickly left the room. Friends. Of course, Cassie always had friends who gave her expensive things, or guys who treated her to dinners at restaurants. She always knew how to surround herself with people who were willing to spend money on her. I sat down on the bed and rubbed my temples. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I had put the money somewhere and forgotten. But no. I clearly remembered putting it in the drawer last night, counting it 3 times. $200 was almost a week's work for me. 5 days, 8 hours a day, hundreds of cups of coffee, hundreds of smiles to customers, sore feet, and the smell of coffee in my hair. It had always been that way in our family. Cassie was smart, promising, the one with a bright future. And I was practical, reliable, the one who would help and not complain. When Cassie needed money for a math tutor before her exams, our parents found $200 a month. When she wanted to go to prom in an expensive dress, they found $400 for that too. And when I asked for help with college tuition after my first year, "May, you understand that all our money is going to Cassie right now. You're doing great working. We're proud of you. Education is an investment in the future, and your sister has great potential." I'm not offended, really. It's just that sometimes I want someone to ask me what I think, what I want, how I'm doing. Not just, "Maya, can you drive Cassie to her friend's house?" Or, "Maya, can you give Cassie $20 by tomorrow?" Or, "Maya, can you pick Cassie up from the party? She's been drinking and can't drive." Now she's taken my money. I'm 100% sure of it. But what can I do? Make a scene 2 weeks before she leaves? Ruin everyone's mood? Destroy the atmosphere of anticipation and joy that has prevailed in the house for the last month? My parents won't believe me. They would never believe that their princess is capable of such a thing. For them, Cassie is the embodiment of all their dreams and hopes. I got up and closed the drawer, turning the key. I'll have to start saving from scratch. Maybe by winter I'll be able to save up enough for that Honda, or something even older and cheaper. Or maybe I should just forget about the car and continue riding the bus. My mother's voice came from the kitchen. "Girls, dinner's ready." I took a deep breath and went down the creaky wooden stairs of our old house. My parents and Cassie were already sitting at the kitchen table. Mom put a pot of pasta and a pan of fried meat on the table, our standard dinner, inexpensive and filling. Cassie was talking animatedly about her plans for college, how she was going to join a sorority, and how that would help her future career as a lawyer. My parents listened, smiling and nodding, asking questions and keeping the conversation going. "You know, Maya," Dad turned to me, "Cassie said that Wilton has an internship program at large law firms. Imagine, she could end up working in the very offices your mother cleans." Mom laughed. "Only Cassie will be the boss there, not the cleaning lady." Cassie's new bracelet sparkled in the light of the chandelier every time she gestured while talking about her ambitions. I kept quiet and ate, thinking that some things are better left unsaid, at least for now. But $200 isn't just money. It's a part of me, a part of my dreams and plans. And if Cassie thinks she can just take it and spend it without asking, she's sorely mistaken. The week after my $200 disappeared was strangely tense. I tried to act normal, but every time I saw Cassie in another new outfit, my heart sank. New earrings, expensive brand name lipstick, perfume I could smell when she walked past me in the hallway. At work, I tried to distract myself by focusing on making coffee and talking to customers. Mr. Rodriguez even asked if everything was okay. "You seem distracted lately, Maya. Customers are complaining that you're forgetting their orders." He was right. I had indeed become distracted, constantly thinking about what had happened. $200 wasn't the end of the world, but the fact that someone close to me could just take my money without question hurt more than the loss itself. On Saturday evening, when I came home from work, my parents were sitting at the kitchen table with serious expressions on their faces. There was a large brown envelope in front of my dad, and my mom was holding some papers in her hands. "Maya, sit down," my dad said. "We need to talk to you." I felt a cold chill in my stomach. Maybe they found out about the missing money? Maybe Cassie confessed? "What happened?" I asked, sitting down across from them. "Nothing bad," Mom hastened to reassure me. "We just want to ask you for a favor." Dad opened the envelope and took out a thick wad of bills tied with a rubber band. I had never seen so much cash in one place. "It's $15,000, he said quietly. "All our savings for Cassie's education." We just took it out of the bank. Mom leaned over to me. "The thing is, tomorrow morning we're going to Uncle Ralph's. He's having health problems and will need to stay for a few days to help out. And Cassie is going to her friend Ashley's for the weekend. They're going to relax at the lake before school starts. And we don't want to leave that kind of money in the house unattended," Dad continued. "We could, of course, put it back in the bank, but then we'd have to go back, withdraw it, and fill out paperwork before Cassie leaves for college. And there's not much time left." I looked at the bag of money and knew what they were going to ask. But for some reason, I wanted to hear it out loud. "And you want me to watch over it?" "You have a drawer in your room that locks," Mom said. "We think it's the safest place in the house. You're responsible. You're always home after work. And most importantly, we trust you." Trust. That word hit me with unexpected force. They were trusting me with $15,000, all their savings, the result of 3 years of hard work at 2 jobs. But they wouldn't have trusted me if they had known that someone had already stolen from that very drawer. "Of course," I said. "I'll look after the money." Dad smiled and handed me the envelope. "We knew we could count on you. You've always been our rock, Maya." I took the envelope, feeling its weight. Not just the physical weight of the paper bills, but the weight of trust, expectations, responsibility. That money meant everything to our family. It was Cassie's chance to escape our small town, get a prestigious education, and become what we all couldn't. "Just don't tell anyone you have it," Mom warned. "Not even Cassie. Not because we don't trust her, but the fewer people who know, the better." I nodded, thinking about the irony of the situation. If only they knew. That evening, I put the envelope in my drawer, hiding it under a stack of old notebooks and photographs. I turned the key twice to make sure it was locked. Then I hid the key in its usual place, under the desk lamp. My parents left early Sunday morning. I woke up to the sound of their car pulling away from the house. Cassie was also going to visit her friend, but for some reason she was delayed. I met her in the kitchen when I went down for breakfast. "Good morning," she said, spreading butter on her toast. She was wearing another new item, an elegant summer dress that looked quite expensive. "Hi," I replied, pouring myself some coffee. "Nice dress." "Thanks. I bought it yesterday at the mall. It was on sale." "On sale. Of course." Cassie always had sales, discounts, and gifts from friends. It's amazing how she managed to get all these great deals. "When are you going to Ashley's?" I asked. "She'll be here to pick me up in an hour." "What are you doing this weekend?" "I'm working tomorrow, and today I plan to clean the house." Cassie nodded and continued eating her breakfast, but I noticed her glancing up at the ceiling several times where my room was. Something about her behavior seemed strange, unnatural. "By the way," she said suddenly, "did your parents say if they left any valuables at home? Documents, money, anything like that?" I almost choked on my coffee. "Why do you ask?" Oh, I'm just worried. The house will be empty until Wednesday. What if someone tries to break in? I'll be there, I reminded her. Yes, but you work all day and you sleep at night. What if someone tries to break in then? Her concern seemed unnatural. Cassie had never worried about home security before. On the contrary, she often forgot to lock the doors or left the windows on the first floor open. I don't think we have anything in our house that would interest thieves, I said cautiously. What about documents? Birth certificates, passports, bank papers? They're in my parents' bedroom, in the safe. What about other things? My mother's jewelry, for example? I put down my cup and looked at Cassie intently. She was trying to look innocent, but I could see the tension in her eyes. Cassie, why are you asking about this? Nothing special, just curious. Where do you keep your valuables? My heart began to beat faster. She's fishing for information. She's trying to find out what I have and where I keep it. What valuables? I laughed falsely. I don't have anything valuable. What about money? The money you're saving for a car. After it disappeared, I keep it in the bank. I lied. Cassie's expression changed. If before she had tried to look innocently interested, now I saw something like irritation in her eyes. Gone? What do you mean? The $200 I kept in the drawer. It disappeared a week ago. Maya, I told you I didn't take your money. I'm not saying you took it. I'm just saying it's gone. That's why I don't keep cash at home anymore. Cassie fell silent and finished her toast. The atmosphere in the kitchen became tense. Finally, she got up from the table. I have to get going. Ashley will be here soon. When she went upstairs, I heard her walking around her room and then the sound of footsteps in the hallway. A few minutes later, she came downstairs with a large gym bag and a backpack. See you later, she said as she walked to the door. I'll be back on Monday evening. But at the door, she suddenly stopped and turned around. By the way, Maya, if my parents call and ask about the house, tell them everything is fine. I don't want them to worry about Uncle Ralph. Of course. When the door closed behind her, I felt relieved, but at the same time, I felt uneasy. Something about Cassie's behavior alarmed me. All those questions about valuable items, about where I kept things. It was as if she was making some kind of plan. I went to the window and watched Ashley's red car drive away from our house. Cassie was sitting in the front seat, talking animatedly to her friend. Going up to my room, I checked the drawer. The envelope was still there, under my notebooks. $15,000 is more than I earn in 6 months. It's a year's rent, a new car, college. It's Cassie's future and the hopes of our whole family. I sat on my bed and thought about what would happen if that money disappeared too. My parents wouldn't survive such a blow. Dad might have a heart attack from the stress. Mom, I don't even want to think about Mom's reaction. And Cassie wouldn't be able to go to college. All their dreams, all the sacrifices of the last few years would be for nothing. But why am I even thinking about this? Cassie went to the lake with her friend. She'll be back on Monday evening, my parents on Wednesday. Everything will be fine. I'm just paranoid about what happened to my money. Although, her questions about valuable items, and that look she gave me when I said I keep my money in the bank now, as if she was disappointed. I got up and checked the drawer again. Then I took the key and put it in my jeans pocket instead of under the lamp. Let it be with me, for my own peace of mind. It was getting dark outside, and I suddenly felt very lonely in the empty house. I turned on the TV for background noise and tried not to think about the $15,000 lying in my drawer. Not to think about the fact that Cassie knows where I usually hide the key, and not to think about the strange gleam in her eyes when she asked about my valuables. But the thoughts kept creeping into my head, and I knew that I wouldn't sleep very well that night. Monday was long and tiring. There was a long line at the coffee shop from early morning. Students were returning from vacation and stocking up on caffeine before the start of the new semester. I spent the whole day at the coffee machine, making one drink after another, trying not to think about the $15,000 lying in my drawer. The key lay in my jeans pocket all day, and I touched it from time to time to make sure it was still there. Several times I caught myself involuntarily checking my phone to see if Cassie had called or sent a message, but the phone remained silent. Mr. Rodriguez noticed my nervousness before lunch. "Maya, you seem restless today. Is everything okay?" he asked when I messed up Mr. Johnson's order for the 5th time, giving him a cappuccino instead of his usual double espresso. "Yes, just tired," I replied, trying to smile and redoing the coffee. Mr. Johnson, of course, was not thrilled. "Young lady, I've been coming here every day for 2 years and always order the same thing. A double espresso, no sugar. Is that so hard to remember?" "Sorry, it's been a rough day," I mumbled as I prepared the correct drink. But in reality, I couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding. All day long, I was haunted by the questions Cassie had asked before she left, by her curiosity about my valuables, by the strange look in her eyes when I said I now kept my money in the bank. Something about the whole situation felt wrong, and that feeling grew with every passing hour. Towards evening, Mrs. Patterson came into the coffee shop with her usual order, a large latte with extra foam. "My dear, you look tired," she said as she approached the counter. "Maybe you should take some time off." No, I'm fine," I protested, but my hands were shaking as I made her coffee. "How's your little sister? Getting ready for college?" "Yes, she's doing great," I replied automatically, though that unpleasant feeling returned to my stomach. Mrs. Patterson nodded. "Good for her. I see she's been shopping a lot lately. I saw her at the mall on Saturday with a bunch of bags. Guess she's getting ready for her new life." My hands stopped. Saturday? But Cassie went to the lake with her friend. She left on Sunday morning. "On Saturday?" I asked again. "Yes, at the Westfield Shopping Center around 3 in the afternoon. She looked very nice in a new dress, and her bags were from expensive stores like Nordstrom and Macy's. Her parents must have given her money for a wardrobe before college." I nodded and gave her coffee, but inside I was reeling. Cassie was at the mall on Saturday. She was shopping at expensive stores. And on Sunday morning, she went to the lake, asking me about valuables in the house. At 6 in the evening, I finally finished work and hurried home. The bus was running its usual route, but it seemed to me that it was crawling like a turtle. I couldn't sit still, constantly looking at my watch and counting the stops to my house. Mrs. Patterson's words about the mall, the expensive stores, and Saturday were spinning in my head. When I opened the front door, the house greeted me with silence. Cassie was supposed to be back in the evening, but her car wasn't in the driveway. Maybe she hadn't come back from the lake yet, or maybe she was delayed on the way. I climbed the stairs to my room, taking the key out of my pocket. My heart was beating a little faster than usual, but I told myself it was just nerves from the responsibility. After all, I hold all the family savings. I hold Cassie's future and the hopes of our entire family. I turned the key in the drawer lock, opened it, and pushed the notebooks aside. The envelope was gone. I froze, staring at the empty space where the brown envelope with $15,000 had been lying last night. My heart began to beat so loudly that I could hear it pounding in my ears. The blood drained from my head, and I felt dizzy. Maybe I had moved it somewhere else? Maybe I had looked in the wrong place. Maybe I had mixed something up in my panic. I began feverishly rummaging through everything in the drawer. Notebooks, old graduation photos, pens, trinkets I didn't even remember. I pulled everything out onto the floor and turned over every piece of paper, every note. Then I started checking every notebook, every folder. Nothing. The envelope with the money was gone. Panic washed over me in waves. I rushed to search the entire room. I looked under the bed, in the closet, checked all the drawers of the dresser, even turned the mattress over. Maybe I was mistaken and put the money somewhere else. But no, I clearly remembered putting the envelope in the drawer under the notebooks. I remembered making sure it was well hidden. I sat on the floor among the scattered items from the drawer and tried to think logically, although my thoughts were confused and it was difficult to breathe. $15,000. 3 years of my parents, working 2 jobs. Dad coming home at 1 in the morning and falling asleep on the couch from exhaustion. Mom rubbing cheap cream on her feet after a 13-hour shift, all for Cassie's future. And now it was all gone. Who could have taken the money? Who knew it was there? Her parents had been at Uncle Ralph's since Sunday. Cassie went to the lake with her friend on Sunday morning. No one else was in the house. No one who knew about the money, but Cassie knew where I usually hid the key, and she had been asking so insistently about my valuables before she left, and Mrs. Patterson had seen her at the mall on Saturday with bags from expensive stores. No, it couldn't be. Even Cassie couldn't be that. But my $200 was gone too, and all those new things she'd been buying lately. A new bracelet, new earrings, expensive cosmetics, designer clothes. I heard the sound of a car pulling up. Going to the window, I saw Ashley's red car. Cassie was getting out of the passenger seat with a bag and a backpack, smiling and waving goodbye to her friend. She looked rested and happy, as if she had just returned from a wonderful weekend. A few minutes later, I heard the front door open and a heavy gym bag hit the floor. "Maya, I'm home!" Cassie yelled from downstairs, her voice sounding as carefree as ever. I took a deep breath and went downstairs, trying to look calm. Cassie was standing in the hallway taking off her shoes. She was wearing another new item, stylish shorts from some expensive brand, whose label I recognized from store windows, where I had never shopped because of the prices. "Hi," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "How was the lake?" "Great." We had such a relaxing time. Ashley rented a boat and we rode around all day. And in the evening, we went to that new restaurant on the shore, Lakeshore Bill's. It was very expensive, but Ashley treated us. They serve such salmon there. Of course Ashley treated us. Someone always treated Cassie. It's amazing how she managed to find people willing to spend money on her. "Cassie, I need to talk to you," I said, and I could hear my voice trembling. Something in my tone made her wary. The smile disappeared from her face. "What about? Let's go up to my room." We climbed the stairs in silence. In my room, the contents of the drawer were still scattered on the floor. Scattered notebooks, photographs, pens, trinkets. It looked like there had been a burglary, which was probably true. Cassie stopped in the doorway and looked around at the mess. "What's this?" she asked, but there was no surprise in her voice, more like alertness. "Cassie, where's the $15,000? Her face didn't change. No surprise, no shock, no question about what $15,000. Just a short pause, and then, "What are you talking about? The money my parents asked me to hold on to. It was in my drawer. It's not there now." "Maya, I don't know what you're talking about. What 15,000? But there was no conviction in her voice. She spoke too quickly, too nervously, and she wasn't looking me in the eye, but somewhere to the side. "Don't lie to me, Cassie. You knew your parents asked me to hold the money for your education. You asked about it before you left. You asked about valuable things, about where I keep them. I was just worried about the safety of the house. I wanted to make sure that nothing important was left unattended. And on Saturday, you were at the mall. Mrs. Patterson saw you with bags from expensive stores." Cassie's face changed dramatically. Now there was real anxiety in it. "You took the money," I said firmly, "just like you took my $200 a week ago." Cassie was silent for a few seconds, looking at the things scattered on the floor. And then suddenly, her posture changed. Her shoulders straightened, her chin lifted, and her eyes took on that cold gleam I had seen as a child when she was preparing for battle. "So what?" she said calmly. I couldn't believe my ears. So what? "Yes, I took the money, and I took your $200 too. So what?" A moment of silence. I looked at my sister and couldn't believe she had said that. So simply, so cynically. It was as if she was talking about taking my pen or notebook. "Cassie, it's $15,000. It's all our family savings. It's your education. That's why I need it more than you do. Do you think I can go to Wilton looking like a provincial girl? Do you know what kind of students are there? What kind of parents do they have? How much money do they have?" I stared at her with my mouth open, trying to understand who this person standing in front of me was. I needed a wardrobe, Cassie continued, walking around the room between the scattered things. A normal phone instead of the junk I had. A laptop that doesn't freeze every 5 minutes. Cosmetics, accessories, shoes. I can't go there looking like a beggar from the provinces. Cassie, but that money was for your education, for college tuition. Appearance is also part of education. You don't understand how the world of wealthy people works. It's important to meet certain standards there. It's important to make the right impression. Otherwise, they simply won't take you seriously. I felt anger rising within me. What about my education? How will my parents pay for college? Cassie shrugged. You can earn more. You have a job. You're young and healthy. Just work a little harder, and that's it. But I won't have that opportunity. I need to focus on my studies, not worry about money. Earn more? I almost shouted. Cassie, that's $15,000. That's more than 6 months of my work. So what? You'll work for a year instead of 6 months. Big deal. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My sister, whom I loved, whom I defended, whom I justified to myself, stood in front of me and calmly explained why she had stolen all the family savings. What exactly did you spend it on? I asked, trying to keep my composure. Clothes, shoes, bags. A new iPhone. The old one was just awful. I was embarrassed to take it out. A MacBook Pro. You can't do college without One Cosmetics at Sephora. Good cosmetics. Not that cheap crap from the supermarket. A few parties with classmates. I had to celebrate graduation properly, not in some cheap cafe with plastic cups. Every word hit me like a slap in the face. She spent 3 years of her parents' sacrifices on shopping and parties, things she could have easily done without. Cassie, do you realize what you've done? Your parents won't be able to pay for your college. All their plans, all their dreams, all their sacrifices over the last few years. They'll find a way. They'll take out a loan, ask relatives, maybe Uncle Ralph will help. But I can't show up at Wilton looking like a provincial peasant who's never seen real money. At that moment, we heard the sound of a car pulling up, then the sound of a door closing. Familiar voices in the hallway. My parents had returned earlier than planned. I looked at Cassie and saw her face turn pale. All that cynicism and confidence disappeared in a second. Maya, she whispered, panic in her voice, you won't tell them, will you? We can think of something. We'll say there was a robbery or that you moved the money somewhere else. But I could already hear my dad's footsteps on the stairs, the heavy, tired footsteps of a man who works 2 jobs to secure his children's future. Girls, he called from downstairs, we're back. Uncle Ralph is fine, so we decided not to stay. The footsteps were getting closer to my room. Maya, can I come in? I want to get our money. We have to go to the bank tomorrow to make a transfer for college. Dad appeared in the doorway and stopped when he saw the things scattered on the floor in our faces. What's going on here? He asked, the first notes of alarm appearing in his voice. I looked at Cassie. She stood white as a sheet, her hands clenched into fists. And then Dad asked the question I feared most. Where is the $15,000 we gave you to keep safe? The silence that followed Dad's question seemed endless. I looked at his face and saw him gradually realizing what he had seen in my room. The scattered items on the floor, my confused expression, Cassie's pale face. Maya? He repeated more quietly, but there was something threatening in his voice. Where's the money? My mouth felt dry. How do you tell a man who has worked 2 jobs for 3 years that all his savings are gone? How do you explain that the trust he placed in me was misplaced? Dad, I began, but Cassie suddenly came to life. She must have moved them somewhere and forgotten, my sister exclaimed, rushing forward. Maya, come on, remember where you put it. Dad looked at her, then back at me. What did she mean? Maya, what's going on? I took a deep breath. There was no point in lying or making up stories anymore. Dad, the money is gone. It was in my drawer, and today when I came home from work, it was gone. Dad's face began to redden. I could see him trying to understand what I was saying. Gone? How did it disappear? Who could have taken it? Only someone who knew where I hid the key to the drawer, I said, looking at Cassie. Maya, she exclaimed indignantly. You can't accuse me. I was at the lake with Ashley. Mom's voice came from downstairs. Danielle? Girls, what's going on? Why is it so loud? A minute later, she appeared in the doorway, still in her travel clothes, with a bag in her hand. What's going on here? She began, but stopped when she saw our faces. Danielle, what happened? Dad turned to her, and I saw something terrible in his eyes. That moment when a person realizes that their worst fears are coming true. Linda, sit down. Why? What happened? Mom started to get nervous. The money is gone. $15,000 that we gave Maya to keep safe. Mom froze. The bag fell from her hands to the floor. What are you saying? I'm saying that our savings, the money for Cassie's education, is gone. Mom slowly sat down on the edge of my bed, staring at us with wide eyes. But how? Who? Maya, you said you'd look after it. The guilt I felt was unbearable. I let them down. I let the whole family down. I'm so sorry. I kept it in the drawer like we agreed, but when I came home from work today, they were gone. So who could have taken them? Dad started to raise his voice. Who knew they were there? Only the four of us, I said quietly. Are you saying that one of us? Dad, I'm not accusing anyone specifically. I'm just stating the facts. Cassie went on the attack again. Maybe she took them herself and now she's trying to blame us. Maybe she spent them on something and is afraid to admit it. Cassie, I protested. Why not? She continued. You've always wanted a car. Maybe you decided this was your chance. Dad looked at me with such suspicion that it physically hurt. Maya, is it true? No. Dad, I would never. This money is for Cassie, for her future. I would never take it. Then who did? Mom's voice was quiet, but it sounded horrified. I looked at Cassie. She was standing by the wall with her arms crossed over her chest, looking at me defiantly. Mrs. Patterson saw Cassie at the mall on Saturday, I finally said, with bags from expensive stores. So what? Cassie snapped. Can I go shopping? With what money? Dad asked, turning to her. Ashley gave me her credit card for the day. She said she wanted to get me a gift before college. Ashley gave you a credit card with several $1,000s on it? Mom asked incredulously. She has wealthy parents. Dad began pacing the room, rubbing his forehead. Okay, let's assume that's true. But then, who took our money? It couldn't have just disappeared. Maybe someone broke into the house, said Cassie. Maybe they knew you wouldn't be home and decided to rob you. Then why didn't anything else disappear? I asked. Why didn't they take the TV, Mom's laptop, Dad's tools? Why only the money from my locked drawer? Maybe the thief knew about the money. Dad stopped and looked at her intently. How could the thief have known about the money? We didn't tell anyone, only to Maya. Cassie was confused for a moment, but quickly recovered. Maybe someone was eavesdropping, or saw you bring it in. But Dad wasn't listening to her excuses anymore. He came closer to me. Maya, are you sure the money was in the drawer? Yes. I checked it last night before going to bed. And the key? Where did you keep it? Usually under the lamp. But I've been carrying it with me since Sunday. Who else knew where you kept the key? I was silent, looking at Cassie. Dad turned and looked at her, too. Cassie? What about Cassie? I don't know where she keeps her keys. A month ago, you showed her where you hide the key, I said quietly, when she asked to see your work schedule. Dad's eyes narrowed. Is that true, Cassie? So what? That doesn't mean I took the money. Mom suddenly spoke up. Cassie, come here. Her voice was strange, calm but cold. Mom? Come here and look me in the eyes. Cassie reluctantly approached her mother. Mom took her by the hands and looked her straight in the eyes. Cassie, did you take our money? No, Mom. Of course not. Mom was silent for a few seconds, studying her daughter's face. What's this? She suddenly asked, touching the bracelet on Cassie's wrist. A gift from Ashley. And these earrings? also from her, and the new phone I saw you with yesterday. Mom, I explained. Cassie, Dad interrupted. How much does a new iPhone cost? I'm not sure. $800. And the laptop I saw in your room? What laptop? A MacBook Pro. At least $1,500. Cassie began to back away toward the wall. Dad, I don't understand what you're getting at. I'm getting at the fact that Ashley gave you more than $3,000 worth of stuff. And that's just what we saw. She's rich. So wealthy that she gives her friend things worth several $1,000s just like that? Mom suddenly got out of bed. I'm going to take a look at her room. Mom, no, Cassie exclaimed, but Mom was already heading for the door. We all followed her. In Cassie's room, there were things on the bed that I hadn't seen before. New jeans with tags, expensive cosmetics, shoes from famous brands. There was a new laptop on the table and a new phone next to it. Dad picked up one of the tags and looked at the price. $150 for jeans. He picked up another tag. $300 for shoes. Mom opened the makeup bag and started looking at the tubes and jars. These are professional cosmetics. They cost hundreds of dollars. Cassie stood in the doorway, clenching her fists. Ashley is rich. She can afford gifts like these. Dad turned to her. Cassie, didn't they teach you how to count? There's at least $5,000 worth of stuff here. $5,000. And that's just what we can see right now. Maybe she saved up. Maybe she worked. Where? Mom asked. Where did she work? When? You were either at school or with your friends all the time. Cassie was silent. Dad came up close to her. Cassie, I'll ask you one last time. Did you take our money? Number. Then explain to me where you got all these things. I already explained. Ashley. Show me the receipts, Mom said suddenly. What? The receipts. If Ashley bought all this for you, she should have the receipts or credit card statements. Cassie turned pale. I don't know where they are. Then call Ashley right now, Dad said. Have her come over and explain everything. She's busy. It's 9 o'clock at night. Call her. Cassie looked at us, and I could see the panic replacing the anger in her eyes. I'm not calling anyone. This is hurtful. You don't trust me. We did trust you, Mom said quietly. We trusted you until today. Something in Mom's voice made Cassie stop. She looked at her, then at Dad, then at me. Cassie, Dad said very calmly, you have 1 minute to tell the truth. 1 minute. If you confess now, we'll try to work something out. If not, I'll call the police and report the theft. Dad, 1 minute. Cassie looked at us all in turn. I could see her thinking frantically, trying to find a way out, but there was no way out. She began, and her voice broke. I wanted to give it back to you. Mom gasped and sat down on the bed. Cassie, what are you saying? I wanted to give it all back. I thought I could earn it somehow, or... Dad seemed to freeze. You took our money. Cassie started crying. I didn't want to. I just needed to look normal before college. You don't understand if I go there looking like a country bumpkin. $15,000, Dad repeated quietly. 3 years of our lives. Dad, I'll pay it all back. I'll find a job. How much did you spend? Cassie was silent, crying. How much? Almost all of it. Mom let out a sound like a moan. Dad turned away and went to the window. He stood there silently for a few minutes, looking out at the street. Then he turned around. Pack your things and leave the house. Danielle, Mom cried out. No, Linda. She stole our savings. She stole our family's future. I don't want to see her in this house. Dad, please. Cassie rushed to him. I'll fix everything. I'm making money. You will, but not here. Go to your rich friend Ashley. Live there. Dad, you have 1 hour to pack up and leave, and take all these things you bought with our money with you. Cassie cried louder and louder, but Dad was adamant. 1 hour, Cassie. After that, I'll call the police. She looked at her mother for support, but her mother was sitting on the bed, crying, her face hidden in her hands. Finally, Cassie turned and ran to her room. A few minutes later, we heard the sounds of her packing her things. Dad sat down on the floor next to Mom and hugged her. "What are we going to do now?" she whispered. "I don't know," he replied. "I just don't know." I stood in the doorway and looked at my parents, who had aged several years overnight. Our family idol had collapsed like a house of cards, and I didn't know if we would ever be able to rebuild it. 3 months have passed since that terrible night when our family fell apart. 3 months during which we learned to live in a new reality. Without Cassie, without dreams of a prestigious college, without trust in each other. Cassie left that same night, taking 2 bags of belongings and that new laptop with her. At first, she did stay with Ashley, but after a week, her friend suddenly became busy and couldn't keep her anymore. Then Cassie found a cheap room in a neighborhood where I would be afraid to go even during the day. She got a job as a waitress at a cheap cafe called Danny's, the same place where 15-year-olds hang out after school and leave 20-cent tips. Her salary barely covered her rent and food. College was out of the question. Sometimes I saw her on the bus when she was coming home from work. She looked tired, older than her 19 years. The expensive clothes she had bought with her parents' money quickly lost their appearance from constant washing and wearing. But when our eyes met, she turned her head away. Pride prevented her from admitting that she had made a mistake. At first, my parents didn't talk about her at all. Mom took all of Cassie's photos off the shelves and walls, as if trying to erase her from our lives. Dad worked even harder, as if trying to drown out the pain with physical exhaustion. I saw him aging before my eyes. Gray hair appeared in a matter of weeks, and the wrinkles around his eyes deepened. The worst thing was that they began to doubt themselves as parents. "Where did we go wrong?" Mom would ask, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea that had long since gone cold. "What did we do wrong?" "We spoiled her," Dad replied. "We thought we were doing the right thing, but in reality we raised a selfish person." I tried to support them, but what could I say? That everything would be fine? That Cassie would come back and apologize? I didn't believe it myself. A month after that night, Mom finally started talking about practical things. "We need to think about the future," she said at dinner. "The money is gone, but life goes on." Dad nodded. "I talked to the bank about a loan. We can use the house as collateral, but the interest rates are high." "What's the loan for?" I asked. I was thinking that maybe Cassie would come to her senses. She'd return the money, or at least part of it. Then she could go to the local college. Mom shook her head. "Danielle, let's face it. She spent almost everything. Her waitressing job is barely enough to survive on. When will she be able to save $15,000? So what are you suggesting?" "Forget about her. Focus on Maya." I shuddered. Talking about my sister as if she were dead was painful. "Mom, no, Maya, I'm serious. You sacrificed your education for her. Now it's your turn. Do you want to go back to college?" I've thought about it more than once, but going back to school meant leaving my job, and my family needed my money more than ever. "I like my job," I said. "Mr. Rodriguez is talking about a promotion." "A barista for life?" Dad asked skeptically. "Why not? I could open my own coffee shop someday, or become a manager." In reality, I wasn't sure about these plans, but my family needed stability, and I was the only one who could provide it. Week after week, we got used to the new rhythm of life. Without Cassie in the house, it became quieter, calmer, but also emptier. Mom gradually put the photos back in their place, but she still couldn't talk about her younger daughter. In October, Mr. Rodriguez did offer me a promotion. "Maya, you've been working here for 2 years. I see how you communicate with customers and how you organize your work. Would you like to become an assistant manager?" The salary increased by $150 a month, which wasn't bad. I gladly accepted. "There's one more thing," Mr. Rodriguez added. "I'm planning to open a second coffee shop in the mall. I'll need a reliable manager. If you can handle the assistant's duties, maybe in a year this position will be yours." Manager. My own coffee shop under my management. It was better than I could have dreamed. That evening, I told my parents about the promotion. For the first time in months, genuine smiles appeared on their faces. "We're proud of you," my mom said, hugging me. "You're doing great. Maybe everything is working out the way it should, my dad added. Maybe it's better for you to work than to sit with your textbooks. I wasn't sure he was right, but my parents' support meant a lot. In November, something happened that I didn't expect. Ethan Morris, a guy I went to school with, walked into the coffee shop. We weren't close friends, but we knew each other well. Maya? Is that really you? He said in surprise as he approached the counter. Hi, Ethan. What would you like to drink? An Americano, please. Do you work here? I have for 2 years. What are you doing? Studying? Yes, at the local college. Business administration. He paid for his coffee and didn't rush to leave. Listen, would you like to go for coffee sometime? I mean, not at work. I was surprised. Over the past few months, I had become so accustomed to thinking only about work and family issues that I had completely forgotten about my personal life. I don't know. Maybe. Friday night? There's a new restaurant on Main Street. Okay, I replied, surprised at my own agreement. Friday turned out to be enjoyable. Ethan talked about college and his plans for the future. He wanted to start his own business, something related to technology. What about you? He asked. Do you plan to always work in a coffee shop? Maybe I'll open my own someday. Mr. Rodriguez says I have a knack for it. That's cool. Starting your own business is always a risk, but the opportunities are great. We talked until late, and I realized that I hadn't felt so lighthearted in a long time. I wasn't thinking about my problems. I wasn't worried about my parents or Cassie. I was just talking to an interesting person about the future. Can we do this again? Ethan asked as we said goodbye. Sure, I smiled. At home, my parents noticed my mood. You seem cheerful today, my mom remarked. I just had a good day. But in reality, it was more than just a good day. It was hope that life could be about more than just work and problems, that I could have personal happiness too. In December, shortly before Christmas, what we all feared and waited for at the same time happened. Cassie called. My mom picked up the phone and I saw her face change. Cassie, she whispered. Dad and I stopped what we were doing and listened to the one-sided conversation. What? Where are you? In the hospital? My God! My heart stopped. What had happened to my sister? Yes, we'll come. We'll be right there. Mom put down the phone, her hands shaking. Cassie was in the hospital, acute appendicitis. She had been operated on, but she was alone. She didn't have the money for treatment. Dad sat silently for a few minutes. The hospital is no joke, he said finally. Let's go. At the hospital, Cassie was in a ward for poor patients. 6 beds in a room, no amenities. She looked small and vulnerable under the white hospital blanket. When she saw us, she cried, Mom, Dad. Maya, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Mom approached the bed and took her hand. Hush, sweetheart. How are you feeling? It hurts, but not just my stomach. Everything hurts. I was so stupid. Dad came closer, but didn't sit down. Cassie, the doctor says the operation was a success, but she needs rehabilitation, medication. I don't have any money, she whispered. I'm barely making ends meet, and now I won't be able to work for a week, maybe more. I looked at my sister and felt a strange mixture of pity and resentment. She really did look pitiful, thin, tired, broken by life. But at the same time, she was the same person who stole our family savings and destroyed our dreams. We'll pay for the treatment, Dad said quietly. Danielle, Mom began. She's our daughter, Linda, whatever she may be. Cassie cried even harder. I don't deserve... No, you don't, Dad agreed. But we can't watch you die. Over the next few days, we took turns visiting Cassie in the hospital. She was slowly recovering physically, but psychologically, she was broken. She talked about her life over the past few months, about the horrible room, about the job where she was humiliated, about loneliness. I thought I was better than you, she said one day when we were alone. I thought I deserved more, but it turns out I'm worthless without you. You've always been part of the family, I replied. I just forgot about it. What now? Can I come back now? I didn't know how to respond. Trust is a fragile thing. It can be broken in a second, but it takes years to rebuild. When Cassie was discharged, Dad announced his condition. You can come back home, but on certain terms. You work and give half your salary to the family budget until you pay back at least part of what you took. No expensive things, no parties, and no lies. If you cheat again, that's it, forever. Cassie agreed to everything. She had nowhere else to go, and she knew it. Now, in January, we are living together again. But it's a completely different family than it was before. Cassie works at the same Denny's, comes home tired and silent. Prestigious college remains a dream, perhaps forever. Local college is also out of reach for now. She needs to pay off her debts first. Her parents are polite to her, but without the warmth they used to show her. Trust is returning slowly, bit by bit. Sometimes I catch Cassie's gaze, full of remorse and longing for what she has lost, but she no longer complains. Perhaps she finally understood the price of her actions. And me? I continue to work at the coffee shop, date Ethan, and gradually build my own life. I finally learned to set boundaries, to say no when necessary. And most importantly, I realized that my kindness should not turn against me. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if Cassie had gone to that prestigious college. Would she have become a better person? Would she have learned to appreciate what she has? But I will never know the answers to these questions. What I do know for sure is that sometimes the biggest theft in a family isn't money. It's trust. And getting it back is much harder than getting back $15,000.